All right. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? So earlier, Will asked if anyone was interested in production, and I was the only one raising my hand. So if I wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea of what production does in the game industry, and kind of what some of the things that we do, and some of the ways you can get there. Today, I'll show you a little bit about my story and how I got there, but that absolutely is not the only way to get there. There are definitely very different ways that anyone can get into game production. So today, let's see that it worked earlier and now it doesn't. I am pressing down. There we go. So like I said, I'll take you on a little journey. So let's go back to 2010. So in 2010, actually, that's when I started here at UT Austin as a freshman. I started in the computer science program because when I was in high school, they told me that if I wanted to go into games, I had to do computer science. So I was like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. I went in. About a year later, I found out I was a terrible programmer. It was a really painful experience. So, but I still wanted to do games. And so I looked around the university and tried to see what else could I do to get there. And I found that the RTF program here had a bunch of like 3D modeling, post-production classes, everything that Ben Bayes pretty much teaches. And I was super excited to take that. So I applied to that program and transferred over to RTF to take basically everything that didn't involve filming, because I wanted to do everything after that. Um, but at the same time, I also found an organization called EGaDS that was very important to me when I was here at UT because, again, it was everything that I wanted to do after I graduated. Through EGaDS, we had a speaker come from Twisted Pixel Games. There we go. And it was during that talk where they came in and unfortunately they closed down this year as well. But they came in and they were asking for volunteer QA testers to come and test their games. And at that time I was like, man, that's my way in. So I went to Twisted Pixel and I worked on a game called Missplosion Man for Xbox Live Arcade as a QA tester. And again, it was a volunteer position. I was not getting paid for it. But I said, maybe this is my way to get my foot in the door. So I did that for a while. Eventually, Twisted Pixel got bought by Microsoft, and I finally started getting paid. And I then worked on another title called The Gunstringer and all of its DLCs. This is for Kinect. So that was in 2010. I continued working at Twisted Pixel for about on and off for about a year and a half as my schedule allowed because I had to get like 4-hour slots so that I could go to Twisted Pixel. So fast forwarding to 2014, that's when I decided, hey, I need to graduate from UT. So I'm going to focus on my graduation. So I quit that job. However, when I was a junior here at the university, a fellow named Paul Toprak started the game development program. And so I started with that program and I basically took all those classes, did the 2D game and then the 3D game as well. And my first one was called Milk Run. Pretty fun little, you were a milk carton platformer. You got powers and you turned chocolate milk and strawberry milk. So it was pretty fun. And then we did our 3D game called Port of Call. And that's the one I want to focus on a little bit here. So we Port of Call, our team was called Underdog Games. And it was a narrative exploration game that got a lot of heavy influences from games like Gone Home and Studio Ghibli movies as well. Through the development of that, I was an environment artist and eventually was a community manager because there was a thing that we had here in the industry. There we go. Streaming and presenting at the same time, fun. There was a thing called the E3 College Game Competition when E3 existed. If you don't know about what that was, it was basically a competition where universities could nominate one game and submit that to the competition and hope to get in the top 5 for that competition. We got lucky, and Toprak was kind of iffy on our game. He wasn't a huge fan of it. But we had, at one point, we had Richard Garriott come in here and play some of our games, and he loved our game. And that's what convinced Toprak to say, hey, all right, we're going to submit it. So we submitted the game and we got top 5. So we were able to go to E3 and have a little booth and kind of show off our game. That's really what kind of reinforced me to say, like, yeah, I really want to do this, because being around a lot of game developers, a lot of games out on the show floor was such a cool experience. We launched a greenlight campaign for Steam and got greenlit while we were at E3. So that's why I became community manager, because we did release on Steam for free. And I handled kind of the social media and emailed aspects of that game. So that was in 2014. I graduated from RTF, like I said earlier. Unfortunately, after I graduated, I couldn't find a job in the industry. So I went back home to live with my parents. I worked at GameStop. I was a sub in an elementary school. And I was a video editor for a company here in Austin. After about a year of that, I said, no, like, I really want to get into games. And so that's what led me to 2015 when I applied for a master's program at SMU Guildhall. So this is a game development program up there in Dallas. And they have different tracks, one for design, art, programming, and production. I applied for the art and the production track. Never heard back from the art one, but I got accepted to the production one. And so I was like, okay. When I applied, I read everything about what it said there, and I was kind of intrigued by what a producer could do. And so, of course, I said yes to that and went to that program. In that program, you make 3 different games, all from ranging in sizes of teams and scope. And then for your last game, you work on a team of about 15-ish people to kind of create whatever game you wanted to create. Our team there was called Tinkertainment. And we made a VR game, which was the first at SMU, called Mouse Playhouse. This was a puzzle game in which you grabbed little puzzle blocks in VR and you took the mouse towards the cheese. And we had a few other little mini games, things like that. For that one, we took that game to GDC, to the Intel Games showcase, and we ended up getting second place for best gameplay for that. It was a really fun title. It's also free on Steam. What really worked for us there was we did a lot of quick prototypes. So that was part of kind of the production aspect of this game, was kind of fail fast so that we can try to figure out what was actually fun about this type of gameplay. And so this is kind of an animation pitch that we made, in which, like, kind of you can see that kind of the spirit of the game was already there. Except the camera view, we ended up changing that so you can be over the table to make it easier in VR. There at SMU, we also were experimenting a lot. We created our own little green screen space. They didn't have any of this. So we just found a big room and put up curtains and rods and green, made up our own little green screen room for a lot of different things. Because at that point, VR was barely taking off, and there was still a lot of kind of new things to do. As you can see on the right picture right there, that's how we filmed our trailer. So the person that was actually being filmed only had one controller that worked. The other one was fake. And then we used this one there, as you can see, with rubber bands on a camera, so that we could track the position of that controller, so that when we went into the engine, we knew the exact position of the camera, both in-world and out-world. So, like, that way we could put virtual camera in the same exact spot as we were shooting in the trailer. So that was literally the only reason why we put that controller with rubber bands on there. As you saw earlier, like we were able to match pretty much the person and with the green screen, and we matched it with gameplay, so it looked almost exactly like if they were there in the world. So we did a lot of really cool things like that that were kind of just at that point very experimental. So that was in 2015. In 2017, I graduated with my master's there at SMU. And we had a little company called Gearbox kind of just show up out of nowhere there. So we had Randy Pitchford and Brian Burleson, one of their now a VP of production at Gearbox. They went to Guildhall to look for people that knew how to make games in VR. At that point, when we were there, we were like, we're making a VR capstone game because we want to get a job. And out of nowhere, this kind of happened. And so both Randy and Brian showed up and said, hey, we're looking for VR developers. Do you guys know anybody? And of course, the directors there at SMU said, hey, we have a team that worked on our first VR game. Do you want to take a look at the game? They said, sure. So I set up the game for them, did a demo for them to play the game. They really liked it, and they said, hey, we want to talk to this team. Can we get them together? I said, sure. So the next day comes around, they come and give us a presentation on a game that they want to make at Gearbox, specifically using VR technology. And they said, we want to hire all of you to make it. So that was very surreal. I hadn't heard anything like that before, well, except for the Valve and Portal team. So of course, we all said yes. And they said, can you start working like on Monday? And we were like, we just graduated from grad school. Can you give us like a week? And so that's kind of how it all started as far as like my production journey there. I started as an associate producer at Gearbox as a contractor in 2017. That year I worked on the game that they wanted to make was this Penn and Teller VR game. If you don't know who Penn and Teller are, they're these magicians in Vegas. And they wanted to make this game about fooling or pranking people in VR. That's kind of their thing. They have a show on CW called Fool Us, and that was kind of an extension of that. And so we made Penn and Teller VR, frankly, unfair, unkind, unnecessary, and underhanded. They wanted that title because Fool Us is FU, and this was FU, U, and U. And so that was a really cool experience. I got to go to Vegas like 3 or 4 times. I went to their shows, went backstage, got called by name during one of the shows. It was very cool. After we were done with that game, they wanted us to make a game in VR with the Borderlands franchise. So we pitched some ideas, and ultimately we came down to porting Borderlands 2 to VR. As a team, we were like, yes, we will do that work for you, but only if you hire us full-time. And that's when about 14 out of the 16 of us got hired full-time to Gearbox that time. We worked on Borderlands 2 VR, about another year's worth of development. And again, I was an associate producer on those titles. I later moved on to Borderlands 3, worked on towards the tail end of that game, and then on some of the post-launch content. And then I helped with the Borderlands Legendary Collection Switch port because I'm really big into Nintendo consoles, and so I was one of the ones there at the company that kind of knew all the cool little things that the Switch could do, and I was kind of pushing for as many of those things as possible. Later, when one of the producers that was working on post-launch left, they kind of put me in that position to work on the kind of the DLCs and updates for Borderlands 3. And I became the managing producer of Live Ops to kind of try to build a Live Ops department at Gearbox when it came to launching our games and everything that came after that. And I was the main producer for the designer's cut and the director's cut, so DLC 5 and 6 of Borderlands 3. I later worked on Tiny Tina's Wonderlands as well on post-launch. And then eventually in our big collection box called Pandora's Box. And then finally, my most recent title is Borderlands 4. I worked on that team, on that game for about 2 to 3 years. But on that game, because it was still in development, I became a level design producer. So I focused on kind of line production. And I can talk a little bit about that, as well as kind of different types of producers, because we have a bunch. But yeah, I worked on with the level design team on pretty much creating the world of Kairos, and trying to kind of fill that world in, making it as lived in as possible, and kind of always try to find new things to do. So that team rocks, by the way. They do awesome stuff. After the game shipped this past year, I went back to doing what I've been doing before, but this time I became the senior project producer for post-launch. And so I've been leading the team on all of our post-launch content for Borderlands 4. We just came out with a few bounty packs, and we're about to release our first big DLC later this month. So yeah, we have a lot of work to do still, but that's kind of where I'm at there. And so as you can see, these are some of the games that I've kind of accumulated so far. I've been a Gearbox for a little over almost 9 years. So I've been able to work on pretty much every Borderlands game that has come out now. So yeah, it's been a really cool experience. If you're watching on stream and you want to ask questions as well, you can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn, and feel free to reach out. But yeah, I wanted to make this very interactive, but now that you know kind of my background, I wanted to kind of give you that so that you can try to see what kind of questions you might ask. But before we go into that, I did want to talk about kind of different types of producers, because you may not know that you want to be a producer yet. So again, every company might have kind of their own titles, their own kind of ways of doing production. But at Gearbox, we have kind of two main roads that you can take when it comes to production. One of them is the line production, or what we call the department or development production. And then there's the project production. The first one is kind of very self-explanatory. It's basically producers that are in charge of departments. So we have like an animation producer, an audio producer, an FX producer, creatures or enemies, NPCs. Kind of pretty much every kind of department has their own producer that can help the team kind of track their issues and kind of try to keep on schedule with things. And then we have the project producers. Those are kind of the more high level type of production. They look at, they're kind of the ones that interact with our publishers. And so I talk a lot with like 2K, for example. It's kind of an everyday thing. And so 2K, our QA teams, our marketing and social media teams, making sure that we're all kind of on the same page as the development teams go, so that they're aware of kind of what's happening, and making sure that when we market our games or we show off trailers, things like that, that they represent really what the development team kind of wants to show off. And so we're kind of that connecting tissue between us and kind of what goes out into the world. And so a project producer, we have only like 6 or 7 here in Texas, whereas a development producer, we have like 30 or 40. So that's kind of the difference here. Some of the line producers say, I never want to talk to publishing at all. And where I'm the other way around. Like, I love talking to publishing. I love looking at our trailers, making sure that we're showcasing our game the way that we want to, and kind of being that connecting tissue. So it really depends on kind of what path you want to go, and it doesn't mean you go one way and you can't go to the other. It really depends on kind of what you aspire to do as a producer. But in the more day-to-day, we do kind of look at things as far as like tracking, schedules, budgets, estimates, things like that. And so we look at kind of trying to make sure that our teams are aware of those things and making sure that we're making a lot of forward progress as much as possible. It's a lot of communication, a lot of bringing people together, a lot of making meetings, trying to find problems, creative solutions, and then maybe like making sure that you get the right people talking at the right times, making sure that there's a lot of things that we try not to let fall through the cracks, things like that. So a lot of communication. And so if you have like leadership experience, things like that, that could be a potential good skill to have if you want to become a producer. So yeah, does anyone have any questions? All right, let's start back there. So it is a master's program. It is quite expensive, unfortunately, because it is a private university. So that brings it up. But it is a program that has been ranked in the top as far as grad programs go. And it does have a wide connection. Like people from my cohort are now work at a lot of different like big companies like Blizzard, EA, Retro, like a lot of big studios that have a lot of experience. So it not only does it provide you the knowledge that you need to know, but it also provides you those connections and those kind of relationships that are very important now in the industry when we're going through periods like this where there's a lot of layouts and a lot of things, and so a lot of kind of jobs rely on kind of those connections that you make. It's a great program. Like I said, you make 3 different games, all of different varying sizes. They've changed it now where the second game you make is a kart racer with your entire cohort. So that's like a 50-person team. Um, Whereas the first one is like a 5 to 6 person team. You make a mobile game or a smaller game, and then you make your capstone team, which is around 15 developers. So yeah, it kind of gives you kind of that experience of working on a lot of different types of games. So it is very valuable. So if you are looking into it, you should because it is a great program. Yes. Sure. So the question is talking about hybrid work and remote work and how Gearbox does in the industry and how do we see the industry going forward. So at Gearbox, we are a hybrid model, and they've already told us we're staying with that forever. So what that means is we can go into the office as many times as we want or as little times as we want. We have people that move states that want to work fully remote, and we have people that want to go into the office every day. So I'm more in the middle. I go to the office maybe once or twice a week, just because there is that kind of in-person connection that has a lot of value that I see where it's really easy to kind of just look over and ask a question versus trying to set up a chat and making sure look at schedules and all that. So it does have value into having some amount of that. But yeah, I mean, I do see the other way too. Whereas remote, like people move states sometimes to be closer to family, or to kind of be able to, be in a place that they want to be in, and still work at a company that they really love. And then the other reason we also wanted to kind of go that style is we do want to attract as many like high level talent as we can. And so if someone lives somewhere else, we don't want to limit kind of their place of living and having them work at Gearbox and bringing all their talent. And so that's kind of why we went with the hybrid model, and we're sticking with that. I do see a lot of companies starting to require people to come into the office at least 3 days a week, things like that. So it really depends on the company and kind of leadership. So I couldn't really tell you exactly kind of what other studios will mandate, but we as a studio at Gearbox kind of rely on that. And so we've been kind of doing a lot of things where like meetings, like whenever we make a meeting, there's always a Teams. We use Teams, and there's a Teams video link, and so we always have it there as well. We record meetings as well to provide people that can't come into the meeting, or kind of are different time zones, things like that, so they can come back and kind of ask questions. So there's a lot of that, and so we've been trying to still continue to build kind of those processes and tech to make sure that we can be as accessible as possible to everyone. Yeah, so sure. So the question is Gearbox the only one within the Take-Two family to be doing hybrid? Um, so unfortunately, I don't have a lot of. They don't tell us a lot about like what happens at Rockstar and what happens at those studios. There's a lot of secrets at Rockstar, so they don't tell us. They don't even tell us. So unfortunately, I don't know exactly know how they work. We work a little bit more closer with our 2K partners, and I believe they're also hybrid, but it really depends. I think they do go into the office once or twice a week as well, but again, it's not a they're not kind of mandating us to go back into the office, as far as I know, within our studios. Strauss has always Strauss, the president CEO at Take Two, has always talked about how he likes making sure that people are happy where they work, and making sure that they're if they're a happy employee, that means we're doing great work. And so kind of each studio kind of functions in that way. They give that kind of autonomy to the students to make sure that they can build that culture within the studios. And so that's why we're kind of a little bit siloed as far as like how that works, but under the Take Two umbrella, we still kind of follow other things. But yeah, it's kind of a mixture. Yes, back there. Yeah, so the question is, based on the background working in art, programming, design, does that help you become a producer? 100%. What really helps is that when you come from dev, so making an artist, a developer, a designer, or a programmer, you kind of learn the language of those departments, or those uh, different types of the lingo kind of that they talk about. And so that helps you whenever you go, like if you become, let's say, an art producer, a concept art producer, or whatever it is within the art department, when you talk to them about like, yeah, we have to do, or they tell you we have to do the normals or the the UV index, like things like that. When you start talking to them about those things, as an artist, if my producer is talking to me about things that I'm doing every day, I'm gonna trust them when it comes to like making estimates, making sure that we have the number of people that we need to make a project or make something done. Like all those things. It's a lot easier to trust that producer when it comes to those things. So having a background in those things definitely helps you because it automatically like builds that trust within the developers. So I would say yeah, 100%. Yes. Sure. So the question is, so I moved from doing a few different things in production, associate producer, then level design producer, live ops, then project production. How does that work? Um, Within Gearbox, we have titles, and then we kind of have roles. And so the roles is kind of like the things that we do as far as like what is needed around the project. So even though I'm a senior project producer, if they say like, hey, we're short on this, and which happened is when for Borderlands 4, they were like, well, we don't have a project that you can be a project producer for, but we need someone when it comes to level design production because we're building kind of a seamless, kind of open-ish world. So world building is going to be super important for this game. We need someone that can come in and like help that team because we don't have anyone right now. And so that's kind of what happened there is like they were able to kind of slot me into that and help that team. And for me, level design was kind of my weakest point because as you had seen, like I had done art, I did a little bit of computer science, but I hadn't gotten a lot of exposure to level design. So when that opportunity came in, I was like, yes, like I want to try something new. I want to learn new things. And again, going back to that question is like, I didn't have that as part of my experience, and so being able to kind of build that with this team was something that I couldn't like say no to. And so within Gearbox, there is that option. We've had producers move to design. We have one that moved from like a producer to level artist. We had one that moved to sound design. And then the other way around too. We've had some people from QA or from other departments move to production as well. So at Gearbox, we are pretty, if you have the skills and you're really passionate about it, then there's a way that we can make it happen. Right now, like our she started as a front desk person. She's now one of the associate directors of narrative. So like, as you can tell, like there's ways to get there if you're really passionate about what you want to do. And so we make it really kind of widely known at Gearbox that you can do that. See, right here.
So you're talking to someone at a studio that doesn't have a studio culture that revolves around production. They just don't use producers on the dev side. What would you say to convince them of the necessity of having a producer?
So the question is, if a studio doesn't have a culture of production, what would you say to a studio, basically like that they should have producers? So I would ask them questions about how their schedules have been in the past. Like, how have you guys handled like these issues or problems or concerns? And then if there's ways that production can make that more efficient or more productive, then I would say if you had put a producer here, like this is what could have happened. And so a lot of the times devs will tell you, we don't need a producer, we don't need a producer. But then when a producer comes in and does their work, they find that they were a lot more efficient, or they, were able to kind of do a lot of things, a lot of tasks like Jira tasks and stuff like that that they have been doing for forever that a producer can do and take from them. Like they find a lot of ways of becoming more efficient. And so, so yeah, that's what I would that's how I would handle it. I think there was back here that, and then you guys. So I think you first, and then yeah. Layoff wise? Okay, so question is stability wise, how does production track with like other departments? Um, so luckily at Gearbox, we haven't had any kind of major layoffs in forever. So we've been able to kind of have project after project, and so we've been at times growing and at times kind of diversifying on as far as the projects go. So we haven't had that issue. I mean, we have a lot of people that have been there for like me. I've been there for 9 years. We have people that have been there over 5 as well. So like we have people that kind of stick around, and even if they leave, it's a lot of times they come back. We have a lot of people that have left and come back several times. It always happens. Um, so that's we're really fortunate to be in that position. We also have a franchise with Borderlands that has been pretty good at kind of bringing in people and keeping the our paychecks coming. So yeah, it's been I think it's been like over 20 years or so since the last like big layoff they had at Gearbox. Um, so I think as far as that, and that's in general Gearbox. So production, art, design, and whatever, like they're all kind of in the same spectrum. So I think, yeah, yeah. I think you next, and then you, and then you.
Yeah, so I work on product teams right now, and right now it's like working with a lot of engineering. So is that a similar structure at Gearbox where, your project manager, you're in charge of making sure developers are on the right track, but then also translating that onto product side or different functions of the business and make sure they know where your engineering teams are working on?
Yeah. So question was, you have a background in product management. Is it similar to kind of production that we do at Gearbox? Um, it's similar. I think. How long was it? Maybe like 4 years ago, something like that. We hired our very first programming producer because programming was one of the last departments that felt they did not need a producer, and the coders felt like they could handle everything by themselves all the time. So we hired a programming producer, had a background in programming, very technical as well. So they love him. Um, and I believe that role is similar to what you're saying, dealing with more technical people. As a product manager, we've had product like managers before that were more focused on like data analytics and making sure working with telemetry, things like that. Um, we don't have those anymore because we're now under 2K, and 2K has those positions, and so we work with their data and analytics team as far as like telemetry and all those things. But it does involve a lot of management. So it does involve a lot of schedules, budgeting, estimates, things like that, that maybe a product manager would do. So it's similar in a way, just less of the data parts of it. Mhm.
What's the most difficult challenge you face as a producer?
Good question. So question is, what's the most difficult challenge I've faced as a producer? Um, So I think part of this role in project production, it's cool being kind of that tissue that I mentioned connects the dev team from the marketing publishing team, but also being part of that involves kind of getting criticism from every angle. So like you're getting pressure to release something at a certain time, or stay under budget, or have this many resources all from above, but then you're also getting the pressure from the dev team saying like, we want to make all this cool shit. So how do we do it? Like, get us the people. Like, and so I think that's been a real challenge for me as far as like trying to learn kind of navigate that is how do you make sure that you keep as many people as possible happy, but you're not always going to make everyone happy. And so that's kind of been something that I've learned over the years as far as like do your best at making sure that you get a big portion of the people in a good spot, and then try to find solutions for the other smaller portion. I think it was you, and then you.
Take like do overnight stays at the studio.
Mhm.
How often are crunch times and how difficult can it?
Sure. The question is about crunch time and how that happens, and how difficult can that be. So, in the little about 9 years that I've been at Gearbox, I can probably count in the number of like in one hand how many times I've had to actually crunch. And that means like it was mandated we had to work extra or work on a weekend or things like that. That's probably like that's it. That's we try to make it as much as possible to have a good work-life balance. And so whenever it comes to problems that do require that, we kind of look at the pros and cons of if we stayed extra, you know, who would that benefit? Is that something that we need? Because if the answer is yes, like, hey, we put out a patch and something broke and it's a Friday night, like at that point, we have to make sure that like if the game is broken, like we can't leave it broken for a long time. And so we have to get a group of people, get together, get it done, stay extra to like get that patch out, get it into cert, and then get it out as quickly as possible. So that's kind of like that's required. Like we have to fix the game, but it's not a like a mandate. Like if we wanted, we could say, well, it's the weekend, you know. But there's going to be a very passionate group of people that say that's when most people play. So let's try to get it fixed as quickly as possible. And so that's kind of what I've seen mostly at Gearbox as far as crunch goes. I think the only time that I was enforced was I think only one time that I've seen where we actually got an email and they said you have to work a 50-hour week, and that was only for like 2 weeks. That was just like 10 hours extra for each week, and that was it. Like that was the only time that I've seen it at Gearbox. So every other time, it's been kind of driven by the devs, which is great because that means like they want to do good things for the game.
Or is it difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. We're a pretty chill studio. We again going one of our one of our big pillars at Gearbox is well, it's creativity, happiness, and profit. And so happiness being one of the pillars is part of that, is making sure that people at the company are, have everything they need and also are happy doing what they do. Um, that's also why a lot of people tend to come back, because they enjoy being part of that. So yeah, I think you were next, and then we'll go back.
Talking about being able to manage people um, what are some effective strategies you found for handling those situations and moments when you have conflicting requests between teams?
Sure. Question is, how do you deal with conflicting moments and kind of bringing tension down? So a lot of the part there is what I've found is that when people get frustrated and um, just are upset about something, they really just want to be listened and feel like their concerns are being taken seriously. And so a lot of the time it's just that, like, you have to set time to listen to them and be present in the moment, and then find, like, because there could be things there that are actually really valuable things that the team could profit from. Um, so having to do that, like, we've set up things in the past. We've done, like, whether it's a postmortem with a specific team, or just having individual little, like, groups. Instead of meeting with the entire team, you meet with specific groups to kind of see their concerns and see how they all kind of intertwine. There may be a lot of similarities, and that's when you can grab things to try to find solutions. Some of the times, like, it involves people just not playing the game enough, because they don't see kind of the issues. And so they're complaining about something, especially like downstream departments that don't get a lot of time at the end of production. Like, if something gets created out of nowhere, it's not tracked or anything, and they don't hear about it, then that becomes a big tension point. And so being able to kind of, we've been implementing a lot of, like, team play tests, where you don't even have to play. Like, you just have to watch someone play. Like, if you have as many people either watching or playing the game, you might find things that regularly don't come up in conversations. So solutions like that involve a little bit more creativity, have tended to be a little bit more positive towards kind of building that and kind of releasing some of the tension. I think it was back there. Sure. The question is, are we working on any new games, and how does the idea come up? No, we're not working on anything. I'm just kidding. No, yeah, we definitely have projects in development. I can't talk about those projects, unfortunately. But as you saw, we're still supporting Borderlands 4. We promised about a year's worth of content, so we have a lot to go for that. You'll be hearing a little bit more about the first DLC pretty soon here. But that one's coming out later this month. And that's kind of our big focus right now, is making sure that all this content is supported and is fun for players, because they buy the deluxe or super deluxe editions of the game, so we want to make sure that they get their money's worth. So yeah, aside from that, yeah, we're definitely working on some other things. And how did the ideas come up? It really depends. Depends on kind of the period where we're at. Sometimes we're in a period of experimentation. Sometimes we're in a period of, let's just make the next thing, or let's just make, something different, cool. And so it really depends on when those times come around. They actually open it up to everyone at the company. So if you have a cool idea, you might put it up on Confluence, and at some point, like, they might review those pitches, and then they kind of go into a formal pitch process. and they'll pick kind of the ones that stick out and go through the entire process that way. But now that we're a part of 2K, like that involves a little bit more kind of reviews and gates through going to 2K as well. So it's a little more complicated, but yeah, it can come from anyone. There's also not only just pitching games, but also pitching ideas within the game. Like I said, I'm a big Nintendo fan. I'm a big Pokemon fan, and in Borderlands 4, I pitched shiny weapons, and it actually made it into the game, and so they're called Phosphenes. So yeah. So in the game, there's a very rare chance that you might get a legendary weapon with a really cool skin. Has a little glow and everything. So yeah, it's very different from our games, but it was just an idea that kind of came from history of playing other games and kind of all that. So I like to play a lot of different games. I just got my platinum for Ghost of Yotei, so that was fun too. So yeah, like I said, it can be game ideas, it could be feature ideas, it could be pretty much anything, and they can come from anyone. All right, I think it was you and me.
What's the best way to get involved with Gearbox right now?
Question is, what's the best way to get involved with Gearbox right now? As far as jobs go, you would have to look into because now it's in the 2K careers site. I believe 2K does have some internships available, things like that. But as you have seen in the industry, it's not super great right now. So we're not like in a big hiring mode, unfortunately. But there are some positions available that you can find on the 2K careers website. Yes.
I want to ask, because you had that environment art background and went into your master's as with that production education, did they teach you how to do like financial kind of budgeting? Because I know like you get like time budgeting when you're like producing a lead sequel.
Yeah.
But I've always that financial aspect's always eluded me.
Yeah. So question is, do we get some education on the financial aspect of game stuff in the programs that I've mentioned? Within the production track, there are definitely some like just like I don't know, different exercises that you do that will kind of give you an idea of like how to make a budget, how to make staffing, things like that. I'm actually an adjunct at SMU as well, so I do teach a course over the summers for production students. And one of our assignments is to make basically create one of the games that they've made, and then think about how they can turn that into either a AAA game or something like that, and then come up with a staffing plan and budgets and things like that. So we do have exercises at SMU that kind of teach you that. Unfortunately, because you're in school, you can't really play with real money, so you don't have the like the pros and cons of like being able to fire someone or hire someone. But we can try to simulate as much as possible, and that's kind of how we do kind of teach those things. But yeah, what I try to teach is I use like templates and stuff that we actually use at Gearbox. So they are real world examples that you do. Yeah. All right. Who else? Over here.
For folks who maybe can only do community college and maybe can't actually afford like high universities or master's degrees. Like for instance, I'm actually from Houston City College, and it's like I would like to do a higher education, but fortunately my livelihood won't be able to allow that.
Sure.
But obviously, breaking into that industry, sometimes that's the way in. So if you have any advice for that.
Yeah. So question is there any advice for not for like the grad programs, but trying to go to community college, things like that? There are definitely a lot of programs around that are now starting to pop up at all different kinds of levels. So if you do happen to have any kind of game design classes in your community college, I would encourage you to take them. So because that'll give you a background of that. But if you don't, um, there are still other ways that you can try to do that. So I would encourage you to go to as many game jams as you can. So yeah, so game jams are really important because they allow you to create something that is not part of a curriculum. So when it comes to the industry, we get a lot of students that apply to jobs that have very similar resumes because of what they do at their school. That's not a negative thing. There's a lot of really cool things that we've seen. Um, but when it comes to doing something unique and something on your own, that could carry a lot of weight. And game jams are pretty open to everyone, and they allow you to, work with different types of teams, work with different types of people, take on a bunch of roles that you may not know that you like or that you know how to do, but you can learn. So I would say kind of try that as much as possible, whether it's through EGaDS, whether it's through the IGDA, or kind of any other type of game jam that you can find. Yeah, yeah. What else?
The early parts of your career were very non-linear, and I was kind of curious what kept you motivated through those times of uncertainty, and then being 8 years in the industry so far, what keeps you motivated still to this day?
Yeah. Question is, what keeps me motivated to stay in the industry, continue doing what I'm doing? Um, since I was in middle school, I wanted to be in game development. Like I knew that was something that I wanted to do. Um, when I was younger, I heard a story from my mom that she wanted to become an accountant, but my dad or my grandpa didn't want her to become an accountant because he was an accountant. And so she eventually became like a chemistry teacher, went into like sciences. And so she really pushed me and my brothers to do what we always wanted to do. And so I had a really good support system as far as like when I told her I wanted to do game development, she didn't bat an eye like about that. I had a lot of things like when I was in high school, one of my career counselors, when I told him I wanted to do game development, he said, do computer science. That's not a real job. Um, and so he pushed me to just become a programmer. So I had kind of those obstacles that I was like, but there are people that make these things. And like when I worked at GameStop, I was like, I want to be the one that's making the games that go on the shelf. Like I don't want to put the games on the shelf. And so that's kind of what kept me kind of like pushing through, trying to find ways to get there. Um, Now, SMU came with a little bit of luck. So, because, I didn't call Randy up and say, hey, come look at our game. But it's kind of that persistence of like, if you really want something, like continue doing what you love. Like, go to the game jams, do something creative. Like, continue doing those things so that you can make sure that you have something to show when that opportunity does show up. So I would say, yeah, just like keep doing that. And like I said, like even when I'm now in my job, 9 years, um, I still try to find small things that I'm super excited about. Like when that opportunity came out to like pitch things and like I created a whole confidence page on like how shiny weapons would work in the game. Like I was like, I want that in the game. And luckily, like it was me. Like I found out that it was me and another designer called Robbie, who's awesome. We had both created confluence pages for shiny weapons, and we didn't even know that we had done that. And so as soon as I found out, we like teamed up, like we like pushed as much up to the creative director as we could, and then finally they got approved. So like it's kind of like consistent. That's been kind of like that persistence of like continuing to just keep trying, because eventually something will show up. Very ominous here. Uh, all right. Any other questions? Did anyone play Borderlands 4? Nice, nice, nice. Cool, cool. Who were your mains? Ha. Liars. We only have 4 characters right now. Cash is gonna be awesome. I can't wait. He's so cool. Yeah, that one's coming out later this month.
So I actually, I'm a little older, so I was like, what, I think 15, 16, I played the first Borderlands, and I was absolutely in love with it. And being within the franchise, so for you, getting to see Borderlands grow and just be in this industry, especially with Gearbox, how does it feel to just sit there and be like, oh yeah, I was part of Borderlands? And it's just, you know, you're starting from Borderlands 2. Just, I guess, in general, how did it feel just being a part of that?
Yeah. Question is, how do you feel to be a part of franchise like Borderlands? Like to be honest, before I started my job at Gearbox, I had never played a Borderlands game. Like I remember working at GameStop when the Handsome Collection came out, and like I didn't know about the game. Now I go back, I'm like, damn it, I should have bought the collector's edition. Um, so yeah, like I didn't know about those, and so when I started at Gearbox, I made it a mission to like play every game. And after doing that, I'm like, God, these games are awesome. So it's been really cool just being able to create something as big as Borderlands, and then when it comes out, like have friends and people that have played the games and like play them with them, and like still have a lot of fun with them, like and actually enjoy kind of the work that we do. And there's still a lot of things because these games are massive. Like there's still a lot of things that like when the game comes out, I'm like, when did we do that? Like or how what? Like so there's a lot of really cool things like that that I still get to kind of experience just as a player. Um, and yeah, like being a part of the process now allows me to kind of inject a little bit of things that I really love and that I see in other games too. So it's kind of all part of that, and it's all kind of of that of like continuing to help evolve the franchise and to become more modern and things like that, but also be able to kind of maintain that DNA that makes Borderlands. And so it's been really cool, and I've gotten to work with people that have been there since the very beginning, even when Borderlands was the more realistic version of the art style and all that. So it's been really cool to see kind of them kind of also kind of interacting with kind of the newer people and making changes to Borderlands formula and all that. So it's kind of all kind of just feels like a dream at times still. So that's why I'm still working where I am because it's still a really fun job. So yeah, I think I wish I could go back and like put the games on the shelf now and do all that stuff. So it's been cool to like kind of go back to like when we do our like midnight releases and things like that and attend PAX events and see all these fans that are come in and like want autographs and stuff. Like it's just been a really cool experience. Yeah. I thought I saw a hand over here somewhere. No. All right. Let's see what time is it. Oh, we're over time. So cool. All right. Well, yeah. If you have more questions, reach out to me. I'm always available. So thanks for coming, everyone.